in color. This is the CBS Evening News.
There are women who belonged to the freedom movement.
Your own people destroyed it. An online network called Internet.
It's an honor.
A new virus.
Now that that's over, did anyone really care about whether or not some woke up one morning and decided to grow the cojones to stand on a rock or count past the sunset to talk about his internal musings? How did journalism go from a politically neutral, objective playground to a socially charged, politically polarizing environment? Better yet, with innovations like YouTube, Instagram, and other social platforms that people ingest daily, why do mainstream media outlets like ABC, Fox, and CNN still exist today? To answer that, we have to time travel a bit. That the earliest known journalistic product was a news sheet from ancient Rome titled Acta Diurna that was said to date back from before 59 BC. That's exactly 2,081 years ago, which means even the ancient Romans weren't immune to the gossip-privy tendencies of Homo sapien societies. The Acta Diurna was published every day and featured daily events like public speeches, as it was hung in prominent places where everyone would see it. The question is, why? Did anyone really care about whether or not some woke up one morning and decided to grow the cojones to stand on a rock or count past the sunset to talk about his internal musings? The short answer is yes, and we still do. To this day, we all care to some extent about what random people whom we've never met have to say. You're doing it right now.
Wait a damn minute.
Fast forward a few centuries to 1949, during the era which Berelson, an American behavioral scientist, was alive to answer the question as to why. Why do we care? His study, What Missing the Newspaper Means, researched the effect of a 1945 newspaper strike. Berelson found that being deprived of the newspaper created an emotional loss beyond simply missing information. He found the strike interrupted participants' daily structure and their connection and sense of, public life. And since then, numerous studies have confirmed those findings, stating that following the news and exchanging public information with others creates a sense of community and sociability that exceeds the news' basic informational purposes. Which, if you think about it, makes sense. We're human beings and social creatures by nature. Keeping up with current events, whether it's pop culture.
If you know how I feel, why would you say that?
Sports.
Talk about Goodwood. Oh yeah, he got him.
Or breaking news.
The possible suspect, Rodney Stanger, seen here. Well, no, this is not Rodney Stanger, obviously.
Gives us something to talk about with our friends and other loved ones. Furthermore, it gives some sort of logic to the insane media shift that we saw as a resultant consequence of the 2020 pandemic. Scrolling on our phones endlessly gave us a semblance of connection that we craved for while in isolation. The problem is we haven't exactly quite learned how to shift our focus back to getting that connectedness in real life. Anyways, it's evident that staying current with information like the news allows us to feel connected to what's going on around us and helps us relate to the people we interact with. Also, who knows if this is the Matrix or not? At least the news gives us a little bit more ammo to have those moments.
Am I going crackers? Can anybody see this?
From an old encrypted tablet to Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and countless modern apps, the modern versions of Acta Diurna are now available with a few taps and swipes on this cool little glass screen that's always watching. Hi, friend. The problem is the algorithms embedded within these multi-platforms. What was once secular to digital content has now seeped its hungry claws into mainstream media.
Right.
Everyone can make content now. Anyone can be an independent digital journalist. I'm just kidding.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
This means that now CBS, Vice, HuffPost, The New Yorker, NPR, The Wall Street Journal, New York Times, TMZ, and okay, I'm not gonna name all the, what'd you think, I was a magician or something? All of these big, previously top-down media outlets have to compete alongside content creators and other user-generated content in order to get their news stories front and center. And how do you get your content prioritized on these platforms when competing against so many others? Going viral.
Oh, I'm sorry, I fell for you.
Buzzworthy headlines, clickbait titles, and the rest. You need to have content that people will engage with, news that people will feel compelled to interact with, and so that these platforms will prioritize your content, because the longer you can get people to stay on a platform, the more money these noobs make from ad placements. Now, I get it. You're probably like,
You dumb, what do you mean?
why does any of this shit
Shit matters, just answer the damn question. Is journalism
Dad or not? Relax.
It matters because not only are clickbaity titles something these real news organizations now have to prioritize instead of objective real news, but social media algorithms will only show its users the content it knows that they like, the stories that its users will want to read and interact with. Which is why the Kardashians and their newest scandal somehow always manages to sneak its way into people's feeds. What'd I tell you?
Gossip privy homo sapiens.
Most of the time, this means only seeing content on your side of the spectrum, if you catch my drift. News organizations are slowly losing their ability to maintain unbiased objectivity with their coverage. Everything is politicized now, albeit strategically veiled, but the messaging is there. You either agree that the Snow White recast of the Seven Dwarfs was messed up, or you don't, if you know what I mean.
Bombastic side-eye.
If you're on one side of the argument, your TikTok algorithm will likely exclusively feature content of media outlets and users who feel the same way, and vice versa. This means that you'll never be met with an opposing opinion, which you can hear openly. That doesn't exactly create an environment that fosters open and accepting dialogue, now does it?
Yeah, that growing divide we're all starting to feel is really starting to make sense now, isn't it?
The real question is, with this ongoing media convergence, can truly objective journalism, where media outlets aptly reflect both opposing sides of societal news, issues, and more, ever truly exist again? Is there a way to solve the algorithm wars? Is journalism really dead? The answer is no, journalism isn't dead, just evolving. While print has dried up as a reliable revenue stream, according to the Pew Research Center, 80% of people report engaging with and making it a daily task to read the news, just on their phones instead of parchment. With the rise of unadulterated, independent journalists in the digital age, unencumbered by internal bureaucratic corporate policies and the ability of genuine human connection, it's likely that we'll witness the rise of news objectivity in the future. Considering, of course, the journalists who take their time to corroborate their sources and to provide equal representations of public opinion. While most may have already lost their faith in mainstream media, contrary to popular belief, there are ethical journalists out there who work for
the system
and manage to do their best to provide stories of quality like Steve Edgington, Natasha Chen, Brett Samuels, Jamie Joseph, Rebecca Clark, and Aaron Burnett. With all that being said, how can we fight against these issues, potential biases with the information we're showed on these various platforms day in and day out? I would say,
Fuck your chicken strips!
It's not an algorithm issue, it's a personal responsibility problem. We as individuals are the perpetuators of these algorithms, meaning we're responsible for them. I would argue that the best way to neutralize your feed would be to minimize engagement with posts.
Like, at all.
Don't like or comment anything. Just read it. That in and of itself is a tell for the algorithm anyways.
What else can you do?
I challenge you to, the next time you see a controversial issue pop up, to look up the same story on a handful of opposing media sites, Fox versus NBC, The New Yorker versus The Times, if you catch my drift. Fact check, cross-reference the resources that the reporters themselves use to see if they omit an additional part of the conversation from the quote that they used in their piece. And most of all, get news from an actual source, not just social media. Now, I know what you're thinking.
You really think I'm about to do all that?
To that I say,
Whoever threw that paper, your mom's a hoe.